How's everybody doing? Good, good. Hey, if you're new with us, we're thrilled to have you. My name is Petey. I'm the lead pastor here, and we're so thankful that you came and checked out Red Rock this morning. I know coming to church for the first time can be super intimidating and super difficult, and so we don't take it lightly, and we hope that this is a great experience for you. I hope you can kind of feel it in the air right now that, man, there's like a buzz, what God is doing here right now. God's doing some really special things at Red Rock right now, and really has been doing some special things, like if you don't know this, for like years. This church is only about 12 years old, but some really, really special things have been happening here over the last decade. But even now, like in these past few months, if you're new, you're getting in at a great time, because God's doing something really special here, and you can see it on paper. Like there's people that are, just this morning I met 2 or 3 people that today was their first time serving on one of our teams today. So like people are taking steps, people are giving their lives to Jesus and getting baptized. Like, all these, look around in the room right now. Like there's a lot of people in here. It's awesome, awesome. So if you're new, this is a great time to get involved, but you need to know that the reason you're sitting here is because there's a bunch of families that came before us. There's a bunch of leaders that came before us who sacrificed big time to make this happen. There's a bunch of people that gave till it hurt and then some, which is what we talked about a few weeks ago. They're like, we want to be the kind of church that gives till it hurts, and then we push through the pain and we keep giving because we believe in what God is doing that much. And you're sitting here, and I'm speaking here because of the sacrifice of some people before us. But we know and we believe, I'm telling you, that's why if you're new, it's a great time to be here, that we believe what God is doing in the future here at Red Rock is going to require even more of us stepping up and giving till it hurts and then some. That it can't just be the people who've gone before us. There's going to be more people. So, man, if you believe in what God's doing here, this is a great time to get involved, to get connected. To those of you that already are connected, you're already giving financially, you're already serving on teams, thank you for building something incredible. And now for the rest of us that are new, it's time to jump in, all right? So go to redrockchurch.org. You can do all that stuff on the website. You can sign up for teams. You can give financially. But, man, let's give towards something really, really big that God is doing here. Y'all good with that? 5 of you are good with that. More of you were good with the last thing. We are in, if you're new, we're in kind of the tail end of a teaching series we're calling Staty Till The End. Staty Till The End. And what we're talking about in this, we're unpacking this one chapter of the New Testament, Luke chapter 21. And Luke was one of the earliest followers of Jesus. And what Luke did is he kind of put together an account of all the eyewitness reports of what Jesus said and what Jesus did, so that we could pass down the story of Jesus from generation to generation. And so we're unpacking this one chapter, Luke 21, where Jesus is getting super deep and super weird, all right? Because he's talking about like what's going to happen at the end of the world, like what's going to happen when the world ends, and it sounds like super apocalyptic and super out there. But really what we're finding is that more than trying to like scare us into like getting a doomsday bunker, what Jesus is trying to do is he's trying to teach us how to stay to the end. He's trying to develop this really important thing for all of us, which is grit, perseverance, endurance, this ability to stay to the end in the areas of our life that matter most. And whether you believe in Jesus or not, that's important. Like all of us need some more grit in our lives. And so we've been digging into it, and today we're going to wrap it up by talking about one word that is super critical to the development of grit in every single one of us, and it's the word remember. All right, remember. How many of y'all, by show of hands, know a forgetful person? How many of y'all know somebody that's always forgetting their keys, their wallet, or their phone, and they can't find them? My wife knows someone who is like that. It's me. It's like the bane of my existence. I'm always losing. Like, bless her heart, she has to put up with so much living with me anyways, but every time we leave to go somewhere, I'm like, oh, dang it. Where is it? Where's it? And she's tried to fix me. She's tried. She's put like a key rack, on the door where I walk in, and then I end up deciding to walk in a different door, and it just doesn't work. It breaks the whole system. But like I'm bad at it. This is actually the only reason that I own an Apple Watch. All right, I don't like low key. I hate Apple Watch. I hate everything about it. I don't need a buzz when I get a text message, all right? I don't need a voot, voot every time. That is like the equivalent of having a child on you at all times and saying, daddy, 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 daddy. I don't need it. I also don't need the Apple Watch telling me how little I exercise, okay? Which is all it does, okay? I get to the end of my day and it's like, Petey, congratulations, you stood up a few times. I'm like, I know, okay? I get it. But the reason I have the Apple Watch is because they got that ding feature. Y'all use the ding feature? You can swipe up, and like if you've lost your phone, you go ding it, and all of a sudden my phone, wherever it is in the house, it's ding! I'm like, man, I need a ding for my wallet, my keys, my kids. I need a ding for everything. I'm all in on the ding. But like the act of remembering, yes, it would save us some time when we're trying to get out of the house. But the act of remembering is a very powerful one. Like there's something really, like in the areas of our life that matter most, remembering is really, really, really important. Like if I ask you right now, those of you that are like my age and older, okay, my age-ish and older, if I ask you to remember where you were on 9/11, it's amazing. Like everyone's nodding their heads. And now, if you aren't old enough to remember 9/11, just know that like history has a way of giving each generation something that they remember. So something will happen that you end up remembering. It's just the way human history goes. But for those of us that remember 9/11, when I say those words 9/11, you remember, and it transports you back, doesn't it? I mean, you can almost play the movie in your head of where I was, who was with me, what it felt like, and that act of remembering does something inside you. It creates in you a deeper gratitude, doesn't it, for the people who fight for our country, the people who protect our country. It creates this great sense of awe in us for the men and women who sacrificed their lives to rescue people from the rubble. I mean, there's just something inside me, and there's something about when you think about 9/11. Just a couple years ago, I had the opportunity to go to New York City and to see the Ground Zero Memorial, and it is haunting. I mean, it's like bone-chilling. But when you see it and you remember, it causes you to be a more thoughtful citizen. It causes you to pray for our country more. I mean, it just does something really, really, really powerful in you. See, when you remember, it gives you perspective. And perspective is really, really important when it comes to developing grit and endurance and perseverance. And today, Jesus wants us to remember something, all right? Now, I'm going to warn you. It's about to get real deep real quick. Like, if you're new to the Bible, I'm just telling you, these words we're getting ready to read, you are jumping into the deep end. We got some floaties. We got some pool floats for you. We'll keep you afloat. Like, we'll keep you hanging. But just know, it's about to get deep quick. But it's really, really powerful, and I believe that what Jesus wants us to remember has the power to change our lives today. I know it changed me going through it this week, and even in first service, felt like God was doing some things, which is cool. So, Luke chapter 21, starting in verse 12. Y'all ready? Woo! 20%. We're getting up there. More and more of you are getting ready. That's great. Here we go. The deep end. Let's jump. It says, but before all this occurs, meaning kind of the end of the world, before all this occurs, Jesus says, there will be a time of great persecution. And you'll be dragged into synagogues and prisons, and you will stand trial before kings and governors because you are my followers. But this will be your opportunity to tell them about me. So don't worry in advance about how to answer the charges against you, for I will give you the right words and such wisdom that none of your opponents will be able to reply or refute you. But even those closest to you, your parents, your brothers, your relatives, your friends, they will betray you, and they will even kill some of you. And everyone will hate you because you are my followers. Welcome to church. But not a hair of your head will perish. By standing firm, you will win your souls. You see, and when you see Jerusalem surrounded by armies, you're going to know that the time of its destruction has arrived. And those in Judea must flee to the hills. Those in Jerusalem must get out. Those out in the country should not return to the city, for those will be days of God's vengeance. And the prophetic words of the scriptures will be fulfilled. How terrible it will be for pregnant women and for nursing mothers in those days, for there will be disaster in the land and great anger against this people. They will be killed by the sword, meaning the followers of Jesus will be killed by the sword or sent away as captives to all the nations of the world, and Jerusalem will be trampled down by the Gentiles until the period of the Gentiles comes to an end. All right, now come back up and breathe. Whew. That's crazy. If you're new to the Bible, you're like, what have I done? I get it. That's crazy. And when we read that, we hear that text from a 21st century Western American perspective,
we read this and we all go, oh no, I don't want that day to happen. Like, that's going to be a brutal day when that stuff happens. We're going to have to things are going to have to change around here. Like, that's crazy, right? Like, and this sounds like super apocalyptic Jesus, like super futuristic, and it almost sounds like he's trying to give us some sort of like cryptic message to decipher and figure out when the end is going to come, when all this bad stuff starts happening. But this is what Jesus wants us to remember. And what's important for us, 21st century Americans, to remember is that what Jesus just described is not something that for us is in the future. Jesus is not being futuristic here for us. See, what Jesus just described is the normal experience for the vast majority of the followers of Jesus throughout all of history. Jesus is not describing the future for us. For us, Jesus is describing the past and the present. Jesus is just describing what, like, from the time he said this, and then he stretched out his arms and he died on the cross so that we could be forgiven, and he resurrected from the dead so that we wouldn't have to fear death, and so we could have a purpose, and so that the church would be born, and so we'd be here at Red Rock, like all that stuff. From the moment he did that, this has been happening to followers of Jesus all across the world. This is the normal experience. I mean, you take a casual read of Christian history, and the followers of Jesus have been persecuted. They have been murdered. They have been beaten. They have been stripped of their possessions. Their homes have been burned. Their families have been torn apart. This is just normal. It's just normal for the followers of Jesus. And it's not just like ancient stuff. Like, this is not just the history of the followers of Jesus. This is the present. This is what's happening right now. Just not here. But this is what's happening, like, everywhere right here. There's a ministry called the Voice of the Martyrs. The Voice of the Martyrs exists to help people like us be aware of what's actually happening in the world to other followers of Jesus. And I want to read you just two of the most recent news articles that they put out of things that are happening. And these aren't like back in the 1700s. No. January 8th, 2020. So we're talking 7 weeks ago. January 8th, 2020, Fulani Islamic militants attacked the predominantly Christian village of Kolban in northern Nigeria's Plateau State, killing at least 12. The men of their village took their wives and the children to safety in the bush before returning to defend their homes and their land from the 3-hour onslaught because they were followers of Jesus. That was 7 weeks ago. That's not ancient history. This is not... That was 7 weeks ago. Another one this is 8 weeks ago. A pastor in Myanmar is serving 2 months of hard labor in a prison camp recently after religious authorities noticed an increasing number of people converting to Christianity. Pastor Sam and his wife would go to market days in the area where she sold fresh fruit and vegetables, and they would take the opportunity to also share Jesus with those that they met. In time, however, the authorities noticed more and more people turning to Jesus, and they decided to arrest the pastor. He fled before they were able to arrest him, so instead they arrested his wife. They also broke into their home and burned all of their Bibles. When the pastor heard that his wife was in custody, he returned to take her place in prison, and he's now serving 2 months in a prison camp. That was 8 weeks ago. I mean, y'all, this thing we read from Jesus, it sounds crazy. It sounds future. It sounds like post-apocalyptic world, Walking Dead stuff. No. It's just normal. It's normal for the followers of Jesus. We're the weird ones. See, like we have to remember this, that for the vast majority of the history of followers of Jesus, Jesus followers have been giving up their lives for the sake of the next person coming to know Jesus. They've been giving up everything so that one more person might come to know Jesus. They've been sacrificing, and they've been enduring such persecution, and they still are. I mean, that's what I'm saying. If you're here and you wouldn't consider yourself a follower of Jesus, I'm telling you, you should become a Jesus follower, especially if you want to be gritty. Because the grittiest people throughout all of human history, the most enduring, persevering people, have been Jesus followers. They can take it all. They can take the pain. They can take because they're focused on a mission. I'm telling you, this is the normal experience for followers of Jesus. We are the weird ones. Our experience is the exception, not the norm. And that's a really important thing for us to keep in mind. I learned the powerful difference between the exception and the norm about 2 years ago. So 3 years ago, I took my boys to their first professional basketball game. All right? Now, we lived in Indiana at the time, and so we have the Indiana Pacers, but I didn't take them to a Pacer game. We went to the WNBA for our first game. So we went Indiana Fever. Now, you're like, why did you do that? Because I know the mascot for the Fever. All right? The Fever's mascot, Freddie Fever, he's this big red bird blob thing, and he gets out, and he's got this, like, belly thing that's on a wheel, and he can, like, jiggle. It's an Indiana thing. I don't know. We just, like, do weird stuff, man. And so he gets out there and he's like doing his weird Freddie Fever stuff. So anyways, I know Freddie Fever, and he's like, hey, I can hook you and your boys up with some sweet tickets. I'm like, killer. Free tickets, I'm all in. And he got us some sweet tickets. We show up to the game, and we're like center court, 10 rows up. It was perfect. Now, granted, there were only approximately 200 people watching the game that day because it's WNBA, and I love WNBA, but ain't nobody watching that, okay? Like, nobody shows up. I'm just real talking, okay? I'm not against the WNBA. I'm just saying no one shows up for the games. I'll get off the WNBA thing. So we love it. This experience is great. But what sent it over the top was not just the tickets. At halftime, my boy Freddie Fever, I know him, he's a good friend. He's doing his Freddie Fever thing, doing the belly stuff and like doing his thing. And then I see he's got these 2 bags down on the court with him. And I'm like, whoa, what's he got there? And as soon as he's done with his routine, in front of the whole arena, all 200, in front of the whole arena, he grabs these bags and he runs them from center court, 10 rows up, and he comes to my 2 boys, and he hands them these bags. And all the kids around him are going nuts. He hands my boys these bags, and they are filled with Fever swag. It's like jerseys and balls and stuffed animals and candy. And all the other kids are like, that's not fair. And my kids are like, ha ha, you hate us because you ain't us, Like, they're loving life. And I was loving him. Like, this is the greatest experience ever. And my boys are forever Indiana Fever fans. They're all in on the Fever, man. They're all in on Freddie Fever. Now, fast forward about a year after that, I took them to their first Pacer game, all right? And the difference between the Fever and the Pacers is I know the mascot for the Fever. I don't know the mascot for the Pacers, which means no ticket hookup. So I did what every other commoner does. I went to StubHub, and I got some reasonably priced tickets that were approximately as high up as Pikes Peak. It was like Pikes Peak-ish views, And so I knew it wasn't going to go good. I knew this was not going to be good, but I was trying to surprise them. It was like right between their birthday, and so I'm like, hey, we're going to go to a Pacer game. I'm like, oh, great. But I saw the look of disappointment on my 8-year-old's face as we climbed stairs, and escalators, so far up that you're like, I think, the elevation had increased. We were experiencing Colorado air, but in Indiana. And so we get up there, and I see the look on his face. We sit down, and the game's going on, and he's just got this look of like. And I said, hey, what's wrong, buddy? He goes, Dad, it looks like we're watching ants play basketball. I'm like, I know. This is how everyone else lives, okay? And I knew we were in trouble when my youngest son, Solomon, he goes, Dad, when's the mascot going to come here and bring me my bag of stuff? I'm like, oh. Your experience was not the norm, my friend. Your experience was the exception. And I was super mad because, I paid for those tickets, man. I want some respect for that, but I got none. But when you think that your experience is the norm, and it's not, it messes with you. And it messes with your perspective, which in turn messes with your grit and your endurance and your perseverance. And I think Jesus wants us as followers to understand that our experience in this slice of the history of the Jesus-following movement is not normal. I mean, let's just cut through the, spiritual, churchy facade for a second. Let's just call it what it is. We got a church on every street corner, y'all. We got options. I mean, back in the day, for most Jesus followers, you don't like your church, you don't like your pastor? Too bad. You ain't got options. We got options. We got this thing in our country that we have to just call it for what it is. It's a beautiful thing, and we should be grateful for it, but we have to understand that religious freedom that we experience in our country to worship freely, to go to church freely, to start churches, that whole thing is weird to every other Jesus follower throughout human history. It's not what they've experienced. Our experience is the exception. And we have to remember that. I'm telling you, we got to call out. Like, I'm so thankful for the religious freedom we have and the lives that have been sacrificed to get that freedom. And I'm so thankful for the men and women who protect our freedoms. But we got to call out, as followers of Jesus, the religious freedom we experience, the ease of what we have here has done something to us. It has caused something inside of us to change. It has created a complacency in us. Where honestly, I mean, come on, just, again, cut through the crap for a second. You know, for most of us, church is a hobby. It's like if you're not skiing, if you're not doing something else, the weather's not too good or too bad, we'll go, we're in. And it's like, yeah, I mean, like, but like, it's just created this thing in us where we just don't really take it seriously like these people do. I mean, these people are like in prison. They're dying. They're sacrificing everything so that someone can come to know Jesus. I'm like, that is not us. The religious freedom we experience and we love, and I'm telling you, people around the world are so jealous of it, man. They jelly. It has messed us up as followers of Jesus. And we have to remember that. We have to remember that. Because if we forget what this is, we're going to end up with some regrets. That kind of rhymes. Like normally I don't do the rhyming things. I'm not good at it. I ain't going to try to pretend. But like if you forget, you will regret. You like that? I liked it. When I wrote it this week, I was like, oh, that'll go. That'll go. It's rare that I hit a rhyme, you know? It's rare. But like legit, if you forget what this is, you will end up with some regret. And this is true not just in the way of following Jesus. For those of you that are here that are just exploring faith and you're not quite sure what you believe yet, this is true in all the areas of our life that matter most. If you forget what this is, you will end up with regret. In your marriage. In your marriage, if you forget what this is, you're going to end up with some regret. If you forget that you strip it all away for a second, a marriage is a commitment. That's what it is. You stood in front of them. They stood in front of you. You stood in front of people. Apparently God was there. And you said, I commit to love you and to be with you in sickness and in for richer or for, that's the one that hurts. For better or till death do us part. It's a commitment. And if you forget what this is, you will end up with regret. Because if you forget what this is, you're going to be tempted to think it is what the rest of the world says it is, which is infatuation and romance and feelings and romance novels. And when that dies out, you will end up being tempted to do some things that you regret and find that ex of yours on social media and look at some things that fill those needs. You're going to be tempted to invest some time in a coworker and text message and hang out and grab drinks afterwards with someone that you know you probably shouldn't because you've forgotten what this is. I'm telling you, if you forget what this is, if you forget, you're going to regret. If you forget what your work is, your job, you will regret. If you forget what work is, like back up big picture. If you forget that your work is a way for you to make money, provide for your family. It's a way for you to use your skills and gifts to contribute to something bigger than yourself and add value to society. But like, that's about it. If you forget that, you will end up with regret because you will end up tying your identity to your job like that. What you do will become who you are. And you'll end up regretting how much time you spent there. You'll end up regretting how much you worried about it. You'll end up regretting how many other important areas of your life that you ignored because you're so consumed with that. If you forget, you're going to regret. The students in the room, in school right now, if you forget what school is, I promise you, there's some adults in the room that can testify right now to it. If you forget what school is, you will regret. If you forget that school is this limited, short. I know it seems like it's forever. I know it seems like it's never going to end. Everyone else in the room is like, yeah, it's tiny. It's a short amount of time where you're supposed to learn and prepare and have experiences so that when you get out, you can be successful and you can adult, you can do the thing. If you forget that, you're going to get caught up in so much drama, so many temptations, so many relationships. You're going to do so many things that you regret and that you carry with you for the rest of your life. If you forget, you're going to regret. Parents in the room, you know. You know. If you forget what parenting is, you will regret. Trust me, my wife and I almost forgot last night. I'm telling you, we had one of those days with our kids where I was like, I'm going to pop your head off your neck, and I'm going to go out the front door, and I'm going to punt it. And I'm going to watch it roll down the street like a basketball that's never going to return. I'm telling you, it was a rough day. It's a rough day in the Kinder household. But like if you forget what parenting, if you forget what this is, you will regret. If you forget that this is raising and nurturing and preparing someone that does not belong to you to go and fly, birdie, fly, and live the life that God's called them to live. And if you don't remember that, if you forget what this is, that you have responsibility to be a good parent, to discipline, to love, to support, to nurture, to all that, but eventually, like, man, they are their own person. They belong to God, not you. If you forget that, you're going to take every disobedience way too personally. You're going to lose your mind on some things. Your temper is going to flare. You're going to break relationships. If you forget, you're going to regret. And man, that's what Jesus wants us to remember. Jesus does not want us to forget what this whole following Jesus thing is. He does not want us to forget what this really is. And I'm telling y'all, this is not a social club. This is not a game. This is not a hobby. The church is God's plan A to rescue the world. And there is no plan B. This is it. Like, what this is a group of people that are so changed by Jesus, so changed by what he's done for us, and we can't help but share it because the only thing that matters at the end of our lives is what we've done with Jesus. It's the only thing that'll matter. And that's why people have been dying for it. That's why they're still dying for it. Because at the end of our lives, we will stand before God, our Creator, and have to give an account for our life. And every single one of us have screwed up our lives. And unless we can look up to Jesus and say, I'm with him, we're screwed. I mean, come on. I know you're like, I can't believe you said that in church. I can't believe it either. It's all right. Sometimes it happens. But it's not a game. And that's what Jesus wants us to know, because look at what he says next. The very next verse is, this is how much of a game it is not. Jesus is about to talk about like what's really going to happen. And this is where, man, it's futuristic, it's crazy. This is actually futuristic. And this is actually what's going to happen. And this is how serious it is. We cannot forget this. This is what Jesus says in verse 25. He says, there will be, in the end, he says, there's going to be strange signs in the sun, moon, and stars. And here on earth, the nations are going to be in turmoil, perplexed by the roaring seas and strange tides. People will be terrified at what they see coming upon the earth, for the powers in the heavens will be shaken. And then everyone will see the Son of Man, Jesus, coming on a cloud with power and great glory. And so when all these things begin to happen, stand and look up, for your salvation is near. And then he gave him an illustration. He said, notice the fig tree, or heck, any other tree. When the leaves come out, you know without being told that summer's near. In the same way, when you see all these things taking place, you can know that the kingdom of God is near. I tell you the truth. This generation, meaning this group of people who suffer for Jesus, these people suffering for the cause, these people giving their lives, these people sacrificing everything, they will not pass they will not pass from the scene until all these things have taken place. Heaven and earth will disappear, but my words will never disappear. Y'all, that's Jesus talking. That's the Jesus that culture loves. I mean, everybody loves Jesus. Oprah loves Jesus. Everybody's in on Jesus. He just said there's going to come a day when this whole thing ends, and he's going to come back. He's going to make everything right, and we're going to have to stand and give an account for our lives to God. I mean, that's not messing around. That's real. This is not a game we're playing, man. And I'm telling you, Jesus died and resurrected to start a church that takes that seriously. Jesus died and resurrected to start a church that doesn't just sing and mouth these words, but believes them with their whole heart. And the world needs a church like this. The world needs a church. Our city, Colorado Springs, needs churches like this who don't play the church game. I mean, we ain't playing a game here. And this is what the city needs. I'm telling you, I'm not there yet. Whoo, man, I'm not there yet. I'll tell you right now. On Friday, I messed it up. On Friday, that's 2 days ago, less than 48 hours. My wife and I were taking a walk down to our little mailbox area, and there was two women that were walking their dogs out, and they're talking. And man, it was Friday. I was tired. I was peopled out. Don't act like I don't get peopled out. It's almost like it's to the end of my week, and I'm like, I love people, but not really. I was having one of those days, right, where I was like, oh, man, this is not good. And I see these two ladies walking, and, you know, you think like, oh, pastor, he's out in the neighborhood meeting people, inviting people to church. Nah, I was like, put your head down, Britt. Let's walk. No talk. Let's go. And they stopped me and said, hey, are you guys new to the area? I was like, are you a pastor? No. And I was like, yeah, we are. They're like, oh, us too. You guys have kids? Like, yeah, what age? Same ages. Oh, my gosh. The other lady's like, yeah, I have kids too. Same ages. That's great. And I'm like, this is perfect. I've got two people who approached me, who stopped me and said, hey, we're alike. We're in the same stage of life. This is great. I should have said, hey, do you go to church anywhere? Because if you don't, you should for sure come to Red Rock, because there's a group of people that just love Jesus, and he's changed their lives, and I think your kids would love it here. And I should have. You know what I did? Well, it's good to meet you guys. We'll see you later. Because I'm not there yet, man. I like, that's not what we read here. That's not what we read here. I'm just not, I'm trying, like, that's what I'm saying. Like, I'm preaching this message to me, man. If y'all don't like it, I don't care. It's for me. I'm trying to get my heart to the right place, where I take this mission that God has given us so seriously. Where I take it so serious, because at the end of this life, the only thing that matters is what we do with Jesus. I'm telling you, if we forget that, we will end up as a church with regret. We will regret that we didn't give enough. We will regret that we didn't serve more. We will regret that we didn't invite more. We will regret that we didn't do everything we could to get in every space, every building, every soccer field, every bar, every tattoo shop, every school, every workplace. We will regret not getting in every place we can and saying, you've got to come hear about Jesus. We'll regret it. And I don't want to get to the end of my life with those kinds of regrets, but God's got to do something in us. He's got to do something supernatural in us to change our hearts in that way, so that we stay to the end. So that we don't, like, say yes to Jesus and then, like, just kind of hang out till we die, till the end. No, we got to be, like, all in till the end, all in on this mission that God has given us. But I just think because of the slice of time we live in, I think many of us have been lulled to sleep. Jesus basically ends chapter 21 by saying that. Look what he says in verse 34. He says, watch out. Watch out. Don't let your hearts be dulled by carousing and drunkenness, and by the worries of this life. Don't let that day catch you unaware like a trap. For that day will come upon everyone living on the earth. Keep alert at all times and pray that you might be strong enough to escape these coming horrors and stand before the Son of Man. I just feel like many of us our hearts have been dulled. I mean, you can feel it. It's like when you read stuff like that, you know our hearts have been dulled by the worries of this life, by the luxuries, by the comforts, by the freedom. We're not in the space we need to be. And so we need God to change our hearts. I know for some of you, you're like, man, I'm not even following Jesus yet. But I know that even in a passage as deep and as out there as this, I've been around Jesus too long to know that he can speak to you in a moment like this. And you might not have your life figured out, and you don't know the Bible yet, and none of that matters. but you can know in the deepest parts of your soul that Jesus is who your life belongs to, and you should be following him. And so no matter where you are on that spectrum, a believer who needs to have their heart reawakened, or maybe someone who doesn't even know what you believe about God yet, but you know Jesus is the way. You know it. Either way, we want to give you the chance to respond to God in that. And this is not a stand up in front of a bunch of people and do anything. This is just between you and God, man. Nobody's going to be watching. But we'd be crazy if we didn't respond in this way. So, man, would you all just bow your heads and close your eyes? I'm going to lead you through just an opportunity for you to respond to God personally. Jesus, there are many of us in this room who are here because someone was gritty enough and persevering enough to share your message with us. And God, we want to do that for the next person. We want this room to be so packed out with people coming to hear who you are. But it's going to require us reigniting our hearts. It's going to require you doing something supernatural inside of us and getting us to a different place. So, God, we want to give everyone in the room a chance to respond to you in that. And so right now, God, I'm going to count to 3, and all of us in the room who are feeling compelled to recommit ourselves to you, to recommit ourselves to your mission, to know that there's nothing more important that we could spend our time and our life and our work doing than helping people discover you and follow you fearlessly. God, when I count to 3, we're going to raise our hands as a private decision to recommit ourselves to that mission. And we know that in making that decision, in responding to you, that you're going to do something special inside of us. We believe that. And so if you're ready to make that decision to recommit yourself to the mission God's given us, I want you to raise your hand on the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. You put your hands down. God, I know there's some people in the room right now who aren't quite sure what they believe about you. But right now, in these moments, you've worked something supernatural in their heart and their mind. And they know that you're real, and they know that Jesus is real. They know that he died for them and that he resurrected for them. They know it. There might be some voices in their head that are chirping and telling them otherwise, but they know. And God, they might be ready right now to give their lives to you and to start following you. And that's a private decision between you and them. But God, I'm going to count to 3 again, and if there's anyone in the room who's ready to make that decision, God, they're going to raise their hand. And we trust that in that moment, you're going to do something incredible, that you're going to begin them on a journey. If you're ready to make that decision to give your life to Jesus, not even sure what it looks like, you just know you need to do it. I want you to raise your hand on the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. You can put your hand down. Jesus, we're going to take some time meeting with you and just talking to you. Maybe some of us for the very first time are going to speak to the God who created us. And so we just ask you to meet us in these moments. God, minister to our hearts. We want to leave here full of passion, full of life, full of grace, and ready to go and live for you. But that's going to require us meeting with you and talking with you. And so we ask you just in these next moments, God, as we reflect, as we respond, that you'd meet each of us exactly where we are and that you do something supernatural inside of us. Meet us here, Father.